Commissioners, the next item is item number 6, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's for 64 Greenwich Street, Tribeca North Historic District. It's docket number 163991, block 224, lot 27. A store and loft building designed by Charles S. Clark and built in 1892. The application is to legalize the installation of storefront glazing in non-compliance with certificate of appropriateness 102766.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ryan Walsh, Preservation Department staff. The application is to legalize the installation of opaque glass to the ground floor. What you can see here is what was at designation, and then over here is what it currently is, and Todd Ernst is going to actually just talk you through the proposal.
Thank you, Ryan. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Todd Ernst. I'm a local architect here in Tribeca, with an office on West Broadway. This is a project I've been working on for some time with the designer, Terry Despont. Actually, Corey was our original staffer helping us get this through the process. And I'm here today to just address one small as-built change in detail to the project, which is the storefront glazing, which over the evolution of the genesis of the construction got changed, and I need to present that change to you today. 464 Greenwich Street is a small industrial loft building in the Tribeca North Historic District, and essentially what we're proposing to amend as the as-built condition is this existing storefront configuration. I had presented back in 2008 for all the glass to be replaced with clear glass, and actually clear Starfire low iron glass. In the current installation, here's it's in the very northwest corner of the Tribeca North Historic District. There's a blow-up of it at the corner of Watt Street in Greenwich. Here's a historic photo of the building, the tax photo from the WPA, actually before Firescape was added. This is a close-up, and in the actual photo we can see there were some gratings on the windows. And then just some context of the area in sort of other historic photos. And kind of the change from the proposed clear to the opaque actually is more consistent with what would have been found in the historic district here, because it was a warehouse building and not a retail building. And what you're seeing in this photo is in basically 2008 when we filed the project. These are the existing doors and the glazing, and the lower panels are all a textured glass in this configuration. And I proposed clear, but what we finally ended up installing was an opaque wire glass. And actually, I had samples of the historic glass that I was able to retrieve from the contractor's warehouse, and you can see it is opaque. Mm-hmm. This is some of the remnants of what we had left. And just moving forward, so here's the glass that was in the lower portion of the storefront and loading dock area. Okay. The upper sections were clear, and this is the glass that we had installed on site, which is the outer lights or outer surfaces are clear, and the inner surface is opaque wire mesh glass to provide privacy and security to the new tenants of the building. And that's
the top glass, is that clear? That's clear.
No, actually the top is the wire mesh as well.
Okay.
And it's a riot-proof, bullet-resistant glass because also the change was from a warehouse use in an interim loft dwelling, an IMD, to a private residence. And here's the detail of the glass as it stands installed, with the clear Starfire outer surfaces and then the opaque mesh inner layer. So that's basically the proposed or the as-built change. And then working with my staff and upon Ryan's suggestion, we went around Tribeca over the last few weeks and looked for examples of opaque storefronts or loading docks, and we found a bunch of them. And it actually is somewhat consistent with the historic district as it stands now. And these are just 10 Harrison Street, 81 Hudson, and 2 North Moore. And Ryan made it clear to us we need to look for legal versions of it, and that's why we're going through this process today.
Thank you. Are there questions? Any questions? All right, we'll take testimony. Barbara Zay.
Barbara Zay of the Historic Districts Council. The multi-layered glazing installed on this storefront lends a thickness to the base that is uncharacteristic of the building's style and age. Our committee felt that the overall aesthetic treatment of the storefront is quite sensitive, but recommends that the applicant should explore other options, such as installing security glazing behind the pre-existing glazing and/or the use of riot glass, which would achieve a similar opacity to what was there, but without transforming the storefront so dramatically. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? All right, there are no other speakers. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we can close the hearing. All right. I think that the glass, even though it was not what we originally approved, but having it opaque, I think seems consistent with what it was historically. I don't have any issues with it, and I think the fact that even if the material is like a thicker glass, I think that this is a building that has now been reused for a purpose that was not there historically, and this is a part of allowing for its reuse. The concerns? Michael, you have a different point of view.
You never know when a riot's going to break out.
Well, security is an issue, I guess. There's a lot of glazing on this one, but is there, are there any concerns? It's at that edge, that the edgy part of Tribeca. Right. All right, are there any concerns?
So is this, just curious, is this a newer trend? Are many of these storefronts now turning residential or closed to the public, to
Actually, I've been
Commerce?
working in Tribeca since 1991 on Greenwich Street and West Broadway. And the trend I've seen is actually kind of away from this. This is actually more industrial looking with
Yeah.
the opaqueness and the mesh.
uh-huh.
And the trend is actually to be more transparent and more, I think, like you saw in the prior presentation, and that's why Ryan made it clear to me to look for examples that actually had permits and were legal, to make sure we weren't going in the wrong direction.
Right, but I could see how, from 1991, there was a move towards transparency. You yourself did this project and made it be open, but I'm just wondering if in the last, 15 minutes, there's, these storefronts are becoming more privatized and more, not open, silent. Just sort of very
Well,
recently. Is this?
Yeah,
Yeah?
Well, I think the issue is that this is being used for residential use.
Right, that's what I'm
That's
asking.
At the ground
Yeah,
floor.
I
so,
think your question was, is that a trend?
Right.
A trend
Sorry,
toward
thank
residential
you.
use on the ground floor as opposed to commercial use?
I think in North Tribeca, it's definitely a trend to be going, smaller scale buildings we're seeing them converted to residential use.
Even on the ground floor?
Yes. I think there were some recent zoning amendments under the last administration that allowed for that. And prior, I had filed many a few variances in Tribeca to actually get residential use on the ground floor. And now in certain zones of Tribeca, it's as of right. So it's definitely a change in the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood from industrial to residential, but
I mean, we may see
the
that,
goal is to preserve the aesthetic.
we may see it more often, we may see it in smaller buildings that are being converted for, you know, sometimes even just like one-family homes, and, but I don't know, there's still I think some areas you will still see the mix. I mean, some areas support ground floor commercial uses, and people take advantage of that, and maybe because this is at one corner.
But I do think that the, searching here for
Yeah.
the historic photograph with the green, I
Yeah.
don't know where it was now.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, that had glazing which was obscure, right?
Yes, I think, right, I think,
This is not an unusual.
right, I think that if we want to be specific to this building, and, you know, other buildings may come to us, maybe translucent or opaque glass is not appropriate, but here, because historically, I think they've shown that in fact it was always, you know, it was translucent glass.
I sort of remember also, Fred, you could probably confirm this, in the Seaport area, before we started doing work down there, in these commercial spaces,
Yeah.
they would actually paint
Right.
the backside of the windows.
Right,
In
right.
the commercial.
Don't you think, though, isn't that different from residential use that's opaque? Somehow it seems a different, and I don't know that it's not an appropriate one, but it's just it's a very different thing to have residential on the ground floor that is, that you can't see through, than it is to have a commercial, an industrial/commercial use where there's a lot of kind of activity on that ground floor. And, you know, doors are opening and closing. I don't know, it's a change.
It is a different.
Yeah.
It is a change, but if zoning allows it.
For sure,
and
yeah.
the marketplace is demanding it, let's say, you're gonna see it.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have to deal with it.
It also seems a little weird when you're walking in areas where it still is transparent, somebody's sitting in their living room.
Well, I think that's sometimes the reason why they wanted to be translucent, where it's about
Yeah, it's
privacy.
better than having curtains
Okay.
or something like that. yeah.
All right, so let's close the hearing.
So moved.
Okay, Fred, you want to read the resolution, please?
Yes, in the matter of 464 Greenwich Street in the Tribeca North Historic District, the application is to legalize the installation of storefront glazing in noncompliance with Certificate of Appropriateness 10-2766. I recommend approval, noting that the historic photographs indicate that the infill at the ground floor was not used as display windows, consisting entirely of swing and lift doors and transoms, and therefore translucent glass relates to the utilitarian history of the building where minimal transparency was required. That the integral mesh of the translucent glass is in keeping with the historic wire glass commonly used on buildings of this type to provide security and strengthen the glazing. That the insulated glass also features a clear outer pane, lending a degree of depth and reflective qualities characteristic of transparent glazing, and that the proposed work does not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building and the Tribeca North Historic District.
All in favor? Any opposed? The application's been approved.